Good evening, it's 8 o'clock and tonight Colombo has erupted in celebrations. This as news has come in of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa resigning. His resignation was sent from Singapore to the Speaker's office. Apparently this was so that he couldn't be actually detained before leaving the Maldives. He's now from Singapore, apparently going to Jeddah. A Saudi air flight picked him up from the Maldives today and took him to Singapore. So there we can see it. Shrija reporting live outside the old presidential palace as celebrations begin in Sri Lanka. Shrija, we'll just be coming over to you, but let's just look at the top headlines tonight. The big story, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa resigns from Singapore. Celebrations in Sri Lanka. Today he went from the Maldives to Singapore on a Saudi air flight. Singapore says there's been no request from Rajapaksa for asylum and we wouldn't grant it. He's supposed to be heading to Saudi Arabia next. Meanwhile, NDTV speaks to the man who could now be the next president of Sri Lanka. Rupee is now all set to touch 80 rupees to the dollar, likely to happen when markets open tomorrow. The rupee at new lows every day this week. The government says, however, it's performing better than other currencies against the dollar as the opposition attacks the government on the rupee fall. The Dalai Lama heads to Ladakh, a red flag for China. Richard Gere speaks to NDTV and says China is the biggest problem on the planet today. He's warning to India and China they're going to try to penetrate your borders in Arunachal and Ladakh like they did in Bhutan. And look at what China did in Sri Lanka today. Mind your language, the speaker and opposition spar. Corrupt, incompetent, jumlajeevi, all unparliamentary words according to a new handbook. Nothing is banned, says the speaker. It's my discretion on what to expunge. Now the opposition's JMM supports Rupee Murmu, a tribal woman from Orissa. Opposition unity is adrift over the presidential polls. NDA's Rupee Murmu now the clear front runner. Ready for Rishi Sunak ahead in the latest voting round. He gets 101 votes, leading the second Conservative ballot. Will Britain now have an Indian origin Prime Minister? Well, the bookies are still divided.
I'm running to be our next Prime Minister because it's your stories that matter most. Your futures.
And on the lighter side, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee takes a break. Here are her momo making skills. Our lead story tonight, well, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa of Sri Lanka, who fled the island nation, has just resigned. Celebrations have begun in Sri Lanka. Let's go across to Shrija, who's with the protesters who've been agitating for nearly 100 days. Shrija, this is what they've been waiting for.
Well, clearly it's been 97 days of the protests here at Golface, right outside the old parliament. There's tears of joy, there's celebration, there's crackers that's being burst by the protesters. Of course, it's a huge celebration at the moment, though we understand, official confirmation come out just yet from the Speaker's office announcing the resignation of Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa. What we do know is that the Speaker has received Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa's resignation and that it would take at least about an hour to authenticate the resignation. So if I could go across to a few protesters here, Father Jivanta, now he's been protesting along with the other protesters, people of all different walks of life for almost 97 days now. The news has come that he has stepped down. How does it really feel? Is this the end of the protest?
Yeah, we can believe but not yet confirm. So the letter has to be authenticated. Anyway, we know that under the pressure of people's power, this kind of tyranny should be failed. So we know this is the people's victory. So all throughout this journey, people have shed their blood and many of our friends are still in the prison and many had to go through, all of us, with tear gas, baton charge and so many hardships. And nearly 97 days, protesters in rain, in sun, So with so many sufferings and people dying in the queues, what we have on the...
Absolutely, it's a victory is what they claim. You see several people. In fact, if I could go across to, okay, there's tears of joy here. Now she's an actress. So you've been, in the protest since the start. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's like more than 3 months we were being fighting against the corrupted leaders. Actually, the innocent people in Sri Lanka, they were voting them and they were giving them power and they were giving all the rights to them. They were giving all the comforts to them to live happily. But that doesn't mean that people have given them to rob the money which belongs to the country.
Right. Thank you. In fact, this is what you see right behind me. There's, announcement that's being made to all those who are assembling here in terms of the celebration. They're talking about the struggle. They're talking about the victory over the last 97 days. If I could go across to yet another, the activist here, Mr. Nuzli, who's been at the forefront of the protest since the beginning, since the start of this particular, movement, which they call it as the People's Movement. What next? Now we see Mr. Gotabaya has sent his resignation to the Speaker. What next? Are you all ending your protest? Does it end here?
First of all, as a country, we are pumped up to hear the resignation of previous President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He will be considered not as a resigned president, but a president who fled the country, scared of the people's power. And we would like to thank each and every Sri Lankan who came to this protest, who fight for the country, and we would like to bow for them. And what next? We would absolutely not stop here. We would continuously fight for this until Ranil Wickremesinghe, the corrupt leader Ranil Wickremesinghe, resigns.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nuzli. You also wanted to talk about the tears of joy that you were talking to me, right? How does it feel that eventually, you all have been fighting for this for so long, and now you see that the resignation has reached Speaker's office?
Yeah, it's the happiest moment for us because since April 9th we are here.
So with the Gotabaya's resignation, does it change? Does anything change?
Yes, definitely, because as a person from North and East, it's a Tamil, we have faced a lot of issue with this government, and from the beginning we are telling we are not supporting this fellow.
Yes.
And as a fellow citizens of Sri Lanka, I came up with them and we have fight like anything to send him off.
All right, thank you. In fact, you have so many, large crowd that's gathering here. The crowd is swelling, and this will go on till about midnight until that confirmation comes out of Speaker's office with regard to Gotabaya Rajapaksa's resignation.
Right, Chijan, of course, as we've seen, it's been a 97-day protest, nearly 100 days where these peaceful protests have continued. So many protesters there gathering today. For them, it's victory. And you spoke to the man who could now be the next president, Sajith Premadasa. Let's just listen to what he said.
What have you all decided in terms of political leaders? Have you all arrived at a consensus at the moment?
Well, today we had a meeting of the major leaders of political parties of the opposition. All I can tell you is that we have arrived at a consensus, and that consensus will be conveyed to the Speaker tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And then we shall proceed from there.
You have been nominated unanimously to the interim presidential post. What is your first step to ensure that you can bring back Sri Lanka to normalcy? Okay?
My major concern is to bring back prosperity, livability to the people of my motherland. Okay. That's my major concern. So right now we have already drawn up a roadmap. I have to say it will take a long time for Sri Lanka to recover, and I mean it. Sri Lankan people should know the reality, the truth. A lot of us will have to go through suffering, make tremendous sacrifices, at least even to come to the 2019 levels. Mm-hmm. My prediction is that it would take 4 to 5 years.
Sajith Premadasa to NDTV. Meanwhile, the other big headline, Tibetan spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, is on his first major trip since the pandemic, and he will be in Leh. Now, the visit has a strategic significance because India and China have, of course, been in friction in eastern Ladakh since 2020, and China has in the past objected to the Dalai Lama's visit to the region. This came also after the Prime Minister's call wishing the Dalai Lama on his birthday recently. Also, the Dalai Lama will be in the region around the same time when India and China will be holding the next Corps Commander level talks on this Sunday.
Some Chinese hardliner, they consider me spiritist and reactionary. So always criticize me. But now more and more Chinese now realize Dalai Lama not seeking independence.
And actor Richard Gere, the head of the international campaign for Tibet, was in Dharamshala for the Dalai Lama's celebrations. He spoke to NDTV on why China is such a threat to the world and how India needs to watch out for China's attempt to penetrate its borders, also pointing out that what's happening in Sri Lanka has a direct link to China.
You've just been in Dharamshala, as you said, for His Holiness's 87th birthday as well. So that's really a landmark occasion, and the Prime Minister as well called up to wish him and greet him on his birthday. And of course, there was immediately a reaction from China saying the Dalai Lama is a separatist. That's one of the politer words. They've often called him.
It's ridiculous.
They've often called him a devil as well.
Of course they do, and a wolf and a vampire and a demon, and it's insane.
Seen it in India with clashes on our borders.
There's not an office that I've gone into in the U.S. Senate, the Congress, or State Department, anywhere, that the first thing they say is we have to do something about China. First thing. Everyone knows it's not Russia. Russia's not the biggest problem on this planet. It's China.
What's happening right now in our region? Because we've seen, of course, what happened in the clashes on India's borders with China. And also because...
Well, that's going to continue. They're going to keep penetrating borders like they have in Bhutan. They're certainly doing in Nepal. All across your border for Arunachal to Ladakh. They're going to be messing with the borders. Places that they said, still, we don't have any treaties there. We haven't decided where the borders are. And we have lots of weapons. We have a lot of money. And they have a 100-year plan that came out in the 1980s. They're about 50 years ahead of that plan already. They told the world what they were going to do. And they've been very, very clever about it. They're patient. They don't have to get involved in a war. They get involved in economies. What they did in Sri Lanka, what they're doing in the stand countries in Asia, what they're doing in Mongolia. I mean, they don't have to fire a gun. They just own the countries through the economies. They lend money. I mean, the horrible thing that happened in Sri Lanka, lending money there, that they had to give them the port. So now China owns the port in Sri Lanka. Well, they've done the same thing in Italy. They have a deal now to basically own a port in Italy. It's crazy.
One of the most ironic things perhaps is that the Communist Party of China says that they want to choose who the next Dalai Lama will be.
The Dalai Lama gets up at 3 o'clock every morning to essentially practice how he's going to die. And he says, I'm not going to be born in a Chinese-controlled area. This poor gentleman from the Communist Party says, it's not up to the Dalai Lama to decide where he's born. It's up to the Communist Party, which is an atheist organization.
Yes. So
it's laughable. It's laughable.
It's laughable. And
it's
tragic.
pathetic.
Yes.
Pathetic.
You can watch that full interview at 9:30 tonight. But let's just go across the other big headline. And it's now extremely likely that the rupee will be crossing 80 rupees tomorrow to the dollar. This as the rupee has hit a record low every day this week. Priyanshi has the latest.
Sonia, Rupee hit a record low today for the fourth straight session, meaning Rupee touched new lows every day this week. Rupee today closed at 79.84 per dollar. Now, the global economic stress began from the war in Ukraine, and ever since the war started, Rupee has hit new lows over 25 times. Now, why is this happening? Why is the Rupee going down? It's mainly because of investors selling off their investments in Rupee and taking their money to dollar investments because of global recession fears. This has led to a record $29 billion foreign fund outflow from Indian markets just this year. It's reducing the demand for the Rupee while increasing it for the dollar, driving up dollar's rate to a two-decade high against major currencies. But the worst might be yet to come. US inflation for June was at a four-decade high of 9%. The Fed might announce 0.75 to 1 basis point interest rate hikes to control this very inflation. That could escalate the foreign fund outflow, meaning that Rupee will go down further. But what does a weakening Rupee mean for you? It means higher costs of imports. We now have to pay more rupees for every dollar's worth of goods we import, which means prices for food, fuel, etc. could rise further for all of us. It also means you have to pay more for education, foreign travel, etc. US education and travel has gotten 7% more expensive in the last 6 months, only because of the weakening Rupee. But there's also an upside boost for Indian exports. However, India is a net importer of goods, so the cons might outweigh the pros in this story.
And the markets lost for the fourth straight day today, as oil meanwhile has dropped to its lowest since February. The markets lost 0.18% following weak global cues, losing just 98 points. The Nifty also down by 28 points. Global markets are falling, fearing an aggressive US rate hike, and Brent crude has now fallen to levels before the Ukraine war. The big political headline tonight, the opposition's Jharkhand Mukti Morcha has decided to support the NDA presidential candidate Rupee Murmu, a tribal woman from Orissa. This leaves opposition unity entirely adrift over these presidential polls, with the NDA now having a clear majority and hers the clear front runner. Rupee Murmu was in Mumbai today as part of a presidential campaign. Yashwant Sinha, who is himself from Jharkhand, now seems clear that it's lost the race.
Rupee Murmu arriving to a grand welcome in Mumbai. At the event organised in her support by the BJP, only BJP and Shiv Sena MLAs from the Shinde camp were invited. MLAs loyal to Uddhav Thackeray, whose party has also announced support for Rupee Murmu, were not invited. Murmu did not meet or speak to Thackeray on the phone either. However, sources say a senior BJP leader will establish contact with Thackeray to thank him for the support.
मैं द्रौपदी जी को शिवसेना की ओर से समर्थन देता हूं और आने वाले समय में जब वो राष्ट्राध्यक्ष बनेगी तो मेरी यही इच्छा और शुभेच्छा शुभकामना है कि हिंदुस्तान जो आज की स्थिति में चल रहा है उससे उभर कर आगे बढ़े.
Yashwant Sinha, the consensus opposition candidate, said the Shiv Sena was forced to support Rupee Murmu as the might of the entire central government was unleashed.
जहाँ तक शिवसेना का सवाल है तो आप जानते हैं कि वो पार्टी टूट गई, उनकी अपनी मजबूरी है, उस मजबूरी में उनको सपोर्ट करना पड़ रहा है. लेकिन मैं आपसे साफ शब्दों में कहना चाहता हूं कि राष्ट्रपति चुनाव के ठीक पहले इस प्रकार की तोड़फोड़ जो हो रही है वो भारत सरकार के द्वारा की जा रही है.
महाराष्ट्र से जो बदला हुआ समीकरण है, बदली हुई राजनीति है, इसके वजह से उनको भारी समर्थन मिलेगा. यहाँ पर रिकॉर्ड ब्रेक वोटिंग होगी और इसलिए वो काफी समाधान व्यक्त किया, उन्होंने खुश है.
With Rupee Murmu all set to be India's first tribal president, BJP leaders say it's the only party to have sent a Muslim, a Dalit and a tribal to the highest public office in the country. But there are political calculations too. Elections are due in Gujarat later this year. In the 2017 election in Gujarat, BJP had not gained as much as it had hoped in tribal votes. Congress performed well in tribal-dominated areas. With India's first tribal president to be elected, BJP hopes to gain significantly in the tribal-dominated areas. Gujarat has 37 constituencies with a significant tribal population, of which the BJP won 19 seats and Congress 15 in 2017. In Gujarat this year, all parties are holding Adivasi outreach events, and one can expect the BJP to make this a part of its narrative.
MLAs loyal to Uddhav Thackeray were not invited to this event organized in support of the NDA presidential candidate Draupadi Murmu, in spite of Uddhav Thackeray announcing that the Shiv Sena would support her candidature. Meanwhile, the leader of the rebel camp and Chief Minister of Maharashtra Eknath Shinde, along with Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, sources said, promised that more than 200 MLAs from Maharashtra would vote for her, which is leading to speculation that perhaps more MLAs could vote in contradiction of their party positions. With camera person Praveen Jirohit in Mumbai, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Well, India tracking presidential elections, but also keeping a close eye on the Desi Connect in the United Kingdom. Could a man of Indian origin become the next British Prime Minister? Well, the bookies are divided, and Parmeshwar, does the latest win for Rishi Sunak in the Conservative ballot mean that he's got it in the bag, or is it still doubtful?
Well, it's too soon to say at the moment, because Penny Mordaunt is giving him tough competition. There was more Tory blood on the carpet today as Suella Braverman became the latest hopeful knocked out of the UK PM race, with Rishi Sunak actually topping the second ballot, but Penny Mordaunt also riding high. Rishi Sunak secured the most votes in the second round of voting among Tory MPs, with Penny Mordaunt coming second. Now, the 5 final candidates, Sonia, who've made it through are Rishi Sunak with 101 votes, Penny Mordaunt with 83 votes, Liz Truss coming third with 64 votes, Kemi Badenoch with 49 votes, and Tom Tugendhat with 32 votes. Now, remember, the former UK Chancellor also topped the first round with 88 votes from colleagues, with Penny Mordaunt coming second with 67 votes. Now, a crucial moment in the battle for number 10 is looming, with momentum seemingly with Penny Mordaunt after she picked up support from 83 MPs compared to Rishi Sunak's 101, putting her well ahead of Liz Truss and in a strong position to make the final runoff ballot of Tory members. Now, if we talk about who the bookies are favouring, Penny Mordaunt has been installed as the bookies' favourite after bombshell polling suggested that she would win head-to-heads against any of her rivals. Rishi Sunak is now number 2 in the list of bookies' favourites based on an average of odds, as you can see on your screens at the moment. But the campaign so far has laid bare Tory divisions over taxation, with a number of candidates attacking the rise in taxes under Rishi Sunak's chancellorship. So is it going to be an out of the frying pan and into the fire situation for the UK? Well, Sonia, let's wait and see.
For the first time, there are now entrance examinations for undergraduate admissions to central universities, and tomorrow is the first such mega examination, the Central University's Common University Entrance Test, which begins from tomorrow. But amongst candidates, young students, there's confusion and panic.
Last-minute cramming in coaching institutes a day ahead of the Common University Entrance Test, to be held for the first time tomorrow. 16 lakh students will take the exam, now mandatory for admission to all the central universities. But there is a huge confusion among students. Why the new exam is giving students jitters?
I received the admit card for the CUT examination, but the center of examination is not specified in it. It will be really inconvenient if they announce the center of examination at the last moment.
अपने दोनों एग्जाम्स में बहुत कम, जैसे 50 को मेरा सिर्फ ज्योग्राफी का है एंड 20 को जो से बाकी सब्जेक्ट है वो सारे कम हो गए।
अब कोई बच्चा मान के चलो राजस्थान से बैठा है, उसे अपनी लड़की को DU में एडमिशन कराना है, लेकिन उसने CUT नहीं भरा, उसका ऑप्शन खत्म। अब उसे अपने लोकल कॉलेज में ही उसका एडमिशन कराना पड़ेगा।
Amid the confusion, students have started trying for admissions in private universities.
My 80% of students have secured one admission either in Sivnada or in Asoka or in OP Jindal somewhere, because they are not very sure what is going to happen in their life.
The past 2 years have been extremely difficult for students across the country, and when CUET was introduced, it was introduced with the concept of simplifying things and bringing more transparency as far as the entrance in universities for students is concerned. But what seems right now is that it has done an opposite job. Now the question is whether the National Testing Agency will address the queries and the concerns of the students in time. Bureau report for NDTV.
Well, another news, Lalit Kumar Modi, the controversial founder of the IPL, has tweeted with another surprise up his sleeve, saying, I'm just back in London after a whirling global tour of the Maldives and Sardinia, not to mention my better half, Sushmita Sen, a new beginning, a new life finally over the moon. So Lalit Modi going public with his new wife, Sushmita Sen, of course, former Miss Universe and former actress. His wife had died recently after many years of suffering from cancer. So Lalit Modi is saying he's got a new life, a new beginning and a new surprise for his many Twitter followers.